Welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and today, happy Monday. We have another show line for y'all today. We are going to have a good time talking to a very strong powerhouse. It's going to be a great show line for you today. When it comes to helping business growth, we have our guest, Michael Walsh. He is not just helping leaders breathe again inside their own companies, he's giving them great strategy. When it comes to being a visionary leader, speaker, and author, he has quietly been transforming businesses behind the scenes for over 30 years. He's worked with hundreds of owners, senior leaders, guiding them not just to bring forward bigger profits, but toward what he calls the three freedoms: freedom in the business, freedom from the business, and most importantly, freedom because of the business. So first, without further ado, I want to welcome to the show Michael Walsh today. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me here.
Yes, sir. I appreciate your time. When it comes to being bold in today's market, today's world, actually, there's a lot of different strategies that people are using, but you have what makes everything else go to sleep. You have experience. Kind of teach us a little bit what you had learned so far with over 30 years plus of experience working with top leaders, and what are some of the trends that you're seeing?
Well, one of the things that I see, first of all, there's as many ways to grow a business as there are people. Everybody's got unique strengths and unique interests and passions. And as a result, you won't necessarily find two businesses that run the same. The problems, on the other hand, are very similar. So while there's many ways to address growth of a business and even how people deliver it, they all get stuck in the same stuff. And if you can figure out what gets people stuck, you can help them move past that and actually achieve what they want, not just for themselves and their families, but also the impact they want to have, and the lifestyle they want to create for the people that work with them, all that kind of stuff.
When you think about freedom framework, that's something that you use as a strategy as you help a lot of top leaders around the world. First of all, you had to be trusted by these top leaders. So what's the strategy that you came up with to create the freedom framework?
Well, it's interesting because this is the third book that I've written, just recently published. And what I found was that the first one I published in 2010 and was, business growth by design. And it was how to grow a company, and sorted it out based on the different experiences that I had with the people we were helping grow. I just sort of codified them and put them in a book. And that was for the smaller business. And then 5 years later, actually wrote another book called Thinking Big is Not Enough. And that was for, it was based on the journey of one particular person. This was a woman in the UK. We work in Canada, the US, and the UK. But this was a woman in the UK that, I met her when she was 52 years old. And she'd had a company for the previous 10 years that had been sort of kicking around between 250 and 400,000 pounds per year. And I met her in 2011, and she was looking for ways to grow. And, so we connected. And in fact, I went over there and we visited. By 2014, she was able to get the business up to 2 million pounds. And then that's when I wrote the second book called Thinking Big. So what are some of the myths and misconceptions, again, these problem spots that stop many businesses that were in fact stopping her, but no longer needed to? And then the second half of her journey happened after that book was published. And that's, she actually ended up growing it to 7.3 million pounds. So about 10 million US or 12 million Canadian. And then she put a bow on it, and she's now retired, and she does oil paintings of different things that actually have her attention in that. So what I found, again, it was the problems. So in 2020, of course, when we hit COVID, I'm like, I think it's time to write another book. I got a little bit more time on my hands because I was doing a lot of individual travel. And so I identified the problems, and there's problems that underlie each of the major milestones of growth. Once somebody's past 1 million, there's, they want to go for 2. And if they've hit 2, they want to go for 5 million. And then 5, they want to go for 10. And if people actually get that far to 10 million, then they want to go for 20, and on it goes. But what I found was that beneath these different milestones of growth, there were underlying issues that would stop people from growing, or that really impede them. And it was interesting because, I claimed that they were underlying. It took me 3 years to figure out what the issues were because they were different in each different company. And the reason they were different in each company is that one of the issues is that you outstrip your structures. I mean, a lot of people talk about the structures in a business, right? Well, as you outstrip your structures, I mean, I promise you a little $2 million company outstripping its structures looks a lot different than, say, a $10 million company outstripping their structures. You're dealing with what feels like very different dynamics. And so what I found was that unless you are able to actually identify the real issue that's underlying the problems, it gets really hard to grow. And what happens is it just traps people and it takes away their freedom as they go. And the first place it does it is as they approach $2 million in revenue, you know? So that's what I've evolved. It took me 3 years to figure it out as we were watching different client situations, is solving them on a one-on-one basis. But then it's like, okay, what do they have in common? And it was interesting because what I found was there were two underlying issues that either by themselves people would assume they knew, but when you start putting them together, it actually had a big consequence to the companies. And here's what I find with business owners. What I find, business owners are pretty smart people, and so senior leaders, a lot of people are really smart. If you can see a problem, you can probably solve it. You know, you can either yourself or you can identify the resources that are needed to solve it. If you can't see a problem, but you know it exists, again, you can solve it, okay? It's when you can't see it, have no idea that it exists, even when it's got you, those are the ones that get us. Because we think of all the normal stuff. Well, what about your marketing, your sales, your production and delivery, the money, the people, the overall strategy and leadership or the evolving marketplace. We look at all the things we can normally see, and then we try to solve these underlying problems with solutions that are not the real problem. There's solutions. We try to solve symptoms rather than the actual underlying problem. And so that's what I find, or what I've found has been getting people stuck. And what it does is the biggest single consequence is it just sucks their freedom away. And as a result, with it, what happens is people either go into a quiet panic state, or they're in a situation where there's this sort of low-level disillusionment or resignation to, this is just the way business is. And, it would be nice if we sold this thing because this is no fun anymore. You see a lot of that.
Appreciate you sharing that story and giving those insights, because a lot of times we are in that situation where we just don't understand what's the root problem, what was causing all this frustration. Because when there's some problems, you're going to know sooner or later is going to haunt you. Once again, listen, I Am Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Michael Walsh. Go to his website, walshbusinessgrowth.com. My next question for you is, you talked about growth from the core outward.
Yes.
Kind of walk us through what does that actually look like, and how do you help these businesses to start from the core and grow from there outward?
Well, it's interesting. We have a traditional notion of what management is. And we think that management equals, I'm the boss, you're the employee, you do what I say. And the fact is that may have worked on an assembly line where you've got, everybody's got to be doing the same stuff. Otherwise, you get lumpy assembly lines. But in a service-based environment, you need all the thinking from all the different people that are there. So the power has shifted from the managers who would tell people what to do on the assembly line. It's now shifted to the individual teams of knowledge workers who collectively have to figure this stuff out. The problems are more complex. The answers are not obvious. They're not evident. And as a result, people are, in fact, part of the core. Now, the traditional value exchange has always been, you need to make sure you give customers value or else they won't stick around. The company needs to make a profit or else they're not going to do it. But what about the employees? As long as the employees are treated like a cog in a system, they're not going to give you their best. So the first thing to do is to recognize that the employees are, in fact, a major part of that core. And the second thing is to actually start giving them things associated with that, not like treats so that you'll do what I need you to do, but more like, customers are there to get whatever the result is that they're paying for. That's where they get their value. the company is there to generate the profit, both financial and non-financial profit that's associated with growing a company. The people are there, yes, they get their paycheck, but they also want professional growth. So the same things that you can do as a employer, obviously you're paying your people, but the job can actually grow people. Yet we're so busy doing the job that we don't take care of the people, because right now they're treated as two separate things. Now, there's a way to give customers value and still make sure that you get your pay. Okay, as a company, like they get to pay for it. That's just part of a system. We know how to integrate different results. What we haven't done is extend that to the employees that are right there, that are actually generating those results. So when we talk about looking from the core outwards, it's how do we build it in so that the people actually on an active weekly and monthly basis get the levels of growth and development that they want for their profession and their career. Just like we want the profit and the customers want the value. So by treating people as part of the core and not just saying it in lip service, but actually integrating things so that they get the value that they're seeking in terms of professional growth, that's how you start from the inside out.
And in addition to professional growth, you also contrast two mindsets, seeing your business as a well-oiled machine versus an intelligent ecosystem. System. Why does that shift in thinking matter so much?
Well, here's the thing about that. If you take a look at a well-oiled machine, a machine is there for the benefit of its owners. So if I own a car, my family and I get to use the car. In fact, some people would say, anybody with teenage kids would say, well, actually, the car's there for them. It's really, we don't get it anymore unless we have to pick them up from soccer practice and things like that. It's like, okay, but they're part of the family unit that represents the ownership. The people are literally the wheels and the electrical system and, and the pistons and the spark plug. They're literally treated as cogs in a system. So, I've heard many people say, listen, people come and people go. Your systems are there to stay. So you should really focus on your systems, and then you just get the people that are appropriate to that. What that doesn't do is it doesn't account for the fact that where the power sits is with these teams of people who are actually generating your results in a service-based business. And this is even more important when you've got businesses that are based on their expertise of the people. So whether it's professional services like architecture, engineering, medicine, different aspects of health, or whether it's in professional trades and, whether it's carpenters, electricians, plumbers, stone guys. I mean, there's a lot of people in a lot of different technical trades as well as professional services, where it's the expertise of the people that's actually generating the result. So if in an ecosystem where the well-oiled machine is there for the benefit of its owners, the ecosystem is there for the benefit of its owners and also the clients or customers, but it's also there for each of the staff. So it feels more dangerous to go to an ecosystem because I don't necessarily control an ecosystem. I mean, nobody in their right mind would say they control a beehive. Okay, yet we see beehives where what you do is you actually set the environment and let them do their thing. And they figure it out and they do their thing. And there's lots of honey that comes from, beehives that have thousands of bees in them. But at the same time, nobody controls it. Whereas there's this illusion of control with a well-oiled machine. And we actually think that we can maintain control. And I don't know about you, but you know what? Neither you nor I, we want to be controlled. Neither one of us does. In fact, we don't even control our relationship between each other. So there's you and there's me. Unless I start to control you, I'm not going to be able to control the relationship. No, I influence the relationship and you influence the relationship, but we have this dynamic between us where we both influence it. It's not about who controls it per se. Yet, as the company grows, this is one of the issues that happens is, in addition to outstripping your structures, you're in a situation where you got a lot more people. And a lot more people means a lot more of these one-on-one relationships. And in fact, the number of one-on-one relationships, they actually multiply as you add people. So when I've got 4 people in a company, I've got like 6 one-on-one relationships. If I get to 25 people in the company, I now have 300 one-on-one relationships. If I go from 25 to 50 people, I have 1,225 one-on-one relationships. And heaven forbid I get to a 100-person company. Now I have almost 4,950 one-on-one relationships in a 100-person company. Okay? Is there any question why the seating arrangement at the wedding is such a nightmare? I can't sit Jerry next to Mrs. McGillicuddy. He'll talk her ear off and I'll hear about it for months. I mean, seriously, and it's one thing, something as trivial as that, but it's not even trivial, but you do that inside of a business, it gets impossible. So people have this illusion that there's control with a well-oiled machine. Whereas with an ecosystem, if you can get past the notion of control and you can actually work with the ecosystem, you're in a situation where you've got something that's way more powerful. People actually work at their best, and you can actually turn this into something that matters for everybody and gives you your freedom.
When you think about friction that can happen inside companies, there are two core issues you say that often clash and create that friction. Can you break those two down for us, and how can leaders do a better job getting ahead of them if possible?
Well, it goes back to the notion, absolutely. So it goes back to the notion of outstripping your structures. So there's the systems and structures and processes that you've got. And then there's the swelling numbers of people that are involved, and those two running into each other. What happens, again, the term herding cats, everybody now understands what herding cats is about, especially when there's all these relationships there. So what people do is they outstrip their structures. They try to bring in better structures that try to get people to do what I want them to do. And that's where they make their mistake. Whereas yes, there are more people there, and they all have different needs in that. But instead of actually trying to use the structures to get them to do what I want them to do, there's two things you need to do. One is to understand a few core basics of human behavior. And then the second thing is to deal with those elements of human behavior so that you can actually achieve the results. So, for example, the four key elements. One, we all have a biological need to survive. We will do whatever it takes to survive. Number two, we all have an innate desire to thrive. Now, of the two, survival and thriving, survival will always trump thriving. However, you don't need to get all your survival needs done forever, because otherwise, why would a 5-year-old ever share a toy? I mean, the third one is both the need and the ability to connect with each other. And the fourth one is to adapt to an environment, even if the environment is one we don't want. So a lot of people were unhappy about the pandemic, yet we still found a way through. And things that we never thought were possible, we actually managed to find a way to get past, from that side. So the more you start seeing survive, thrive, connect, and adapt, and how they play in things, and then if I can put in structures that support people to feel safe and give them access to thriving, and actually create the environment where people can connect with each other, so that as they do adapt to a constantly changing environment, they can actually do it with each other. You're in a situation where they start carrying more of the load on their own. Because guess what? If you've hired right, which hiring is literally half the game, but if you've hired the right people and you put them together based on complementary strengths, the biggest job is just to stay the heck out of their way and let them do their job. Because if they do, that's when they get the satisfaction, and that's when they really thrive. It's thriving with each other. So that actually, they need to understand those elements of human behavior and the impact of that on how people work together.
Once again, listen to Refocused Radio and talking to our guest today, Michael Walsh. Go to his website. His website is walshbusinessgrowth.com. My next question for you is, in your experience, what have you seen change with leaders when they finally realize that their business should work not just for them? Let me rephrase that. When they finally realize that the business should work for them instead of working just because of them?
What the result of that is that people actually feel more ease. They actually learn to trust their people more. Now, even that's taken a step at a time. They need to work with it in small steps and allow people to grow with that. But as they do that, what they find is that they get to do the stuff that they're uniquely qualified themselves at, that actually make a big difference in the company. And they get to partner with their fellow employees. And together, what happens is you just get something that's way stronger. You've got everybody working at their strengths, which we all prefer. And instead of some notion that this is some utopian, perfection thing that's not accessible, actually, there's many companies that are doing this, and they're just having more fun.
And that's the dream right there. That's the dream that everyone wants to see. Like when you're playing golf, you want to be in the green. You don't want to be in the sand. When
Correct.
you think about the opportunities that high achieving leaders who are on the come up in their ranks and within these companies, how do you see the best help for them while you're trusting them to carry the vision? You still at the same time want them to operate within the means of the business and how it flows. What will you say to those up and coming leaders who are rising up the ranks and preventing them from slowing down?
What I would say is, assuming that you know how to hire people, and if you don't, learn. There are places to learn that. Instead of worrying about telling people what to do or trying to get them to do anything, stop and listen and notice, to what extent are the people in my organization surviving? To what extent are they thriving? To what extent are they pretending they're thriving but really operating from fear? To what extent are they connecting protectively versus connecting to create something cool? If you can create this environment that's actually not troublesome, it is kind of a safe environment. And safe environment doesn't mean, you give everybody a blanket and tuck them in at night. Sometimes engagement is made by provoking people. Are you up for this? And they're like, yeah, I'm up for it. Then they have a chance to actually thrive. And so to create, just by noticing what's going on with human behavior, these four very simple aspects, the minute you start looking for it, you'll start to see it. And if people start seeing that as an up and coming leader, then they'll navigate their way with their people differently, and they'll be able to naturally nurture that and just quietly take steps along the way.
For that business owner who's listening right now and they feel like they know that they have a chance to switch everything in their business for it to thrive, but at the same time, they still feel like they have to hold a tight grip and make sure everything's done right, so to speak. What would we say to them to help them navigate that delicacy? Because yes, you understand you want to take those risks and make things happen, but at the same time, you don't want to lose yourself in creating this perfect environment.
Okay, so I was born in Canada, and in Canada we love hockey. So there's a term in hockey called holding the stick too tight. How do I take a good shot and make it a bad shot? I hold the stick too tight. So you can say I want this business to thrive, but while I'm busy hanging on to this, it just doesn't work. Okay. And the other side of that is, for those that are not into sports, I also play the banjo. No, I'm not the greatest at it. But one of the things that I learned, when they get their fingers to go really, really fast, the only way to do that is to relax the hand. If the hand is working too hard, it doesn't work. You need to be able to relax and actually allow it to flow. The more you can relax with the people that you've got, the better everything goes. So sometimes what there is to do, one of the best pieces of advice that I was given years and years ago was, Michael, if you're too stressed and too tense, breathe. And you know what? In the next breath, maybe an idea will come to you. And if that breath only goes down to your neck, breathe deeper. Your lungs are bigger than that. Just breathe. And you know what? Allow for life to help.
That's really good. I'm going to take that personally because when you are caught up in the excitement of the vision, and then it's almost no comedy intended, but I might go there. It's a turntable scratch when reality hits you and you're like, whoa, I'm actually here when I actually want to be further down the road. If someone's watching this and listening to us right now and they feel like they're at that spot, is that a personal growth thing that they need to work on? or is it a combination of other things as well?
Well, there's always a combination, but the one thing I will say about that is that your business will only grow to the extent that you grow. If I'm not growing, my business can't. I will naturally have a limit, and the limit is usually wherever my growth limit is. So if I'm not willing to grow me, my business is probably not going to grow too far, not without a whole bunch of struggle. And sometimes just sort of breathing into it and allowing it to occur. It's like trusting people. Well, I don't want to give away my trust to people, or I could just notice where they're good and let them do a little bit more of that. Because you know what? The stuff they're really good at, that I do trust. Okay, so then what if I put them with somebody else who's got a strength where they've got a weak spot? I trust that person with that. And all of a sudden I'm sitting back and relaxing. And again, one small step at a time, allowing it to occur. So I don't need to do any wholesale changes. All I need to do is just start to notice and allow it to evolve. And I will grow through that process. I don't have to worry about, going to some self-help thing here or there. I mean, it's always nice to have an outside set of eyes if you can get it. But I got to tell you, there's a lot of places where you can get different perspectives. But if you allow for your own growth and development through the process, everything just gets a lot easier. And you don't have to go, well, I guess I have to grow myself. Maybe you just have to allow that you don't already know everything, or you don't need to know everything. It takes the pressure off and allows you to learn.
Man, this was a masterclass. I appreciate having our guest on today, Michael Walsh, be on the show. Make sure you go to his website. It's walshbusinessgrowth.com. The last thing I want to ask you is, if someone wants more detail on your resources, or if you have any upcoming events in the future, what's the best way that they can stay in touch with you and your updates?
Well, the first thing I would say is go check out the latest book, Freedom by Design. And that's in print copy, Kindle copy, as well as the Audible books for those that like to listen, as many podcasters may. The other thing is just keep an eye on the website. Starting in the fall, we're actually going to be adding more of the events and things that we're dealing with to the website as we go. So if you just stay tuned there, then you'll find that you'll be able to keep up to date with what's going on.
Like I always want to say to you, appreciate your time, man.
Well, thank you so much.